I didn't see you come in. While you're here, development is an act of growth or progression, particularly in terms of an economy or the human condition, and is typically composed of stages with an aspiration towards improvement. Access to healthcare, education, income, employment, clean air and water, as well as political participation and freedoms endorse such growth. There are a number of participatory and economic approaches which can be used to understand development, 4 of which will be explored in this film.
In 2015, the Global Wealth Report identified the United States of America as the wealthiest country in the world, and simultaneously dubbed it the unequal states of America, due to its gaping wealth and income inequality, which has been the subject of increasing debate. We will discuss GDP and GNI, Gini coefficient, along with the basic needs theory and HDI, to assess the position of the US in relation to each measure. We shall endeavour to determine if the land of opportunity is in fact so fortunate.
Gross domestic product (GDP) is an economic tool used to measure a country's total economic activity, which includes output plus expenditure. America is an economically developed nation, and this is proven by their GDP, which is the highest in the world, $18.1 trillion. America exports $1.62 trillion products and services to the rest of the world, in contrast to Kenya, which is a developing country. Their GDP is $145.650 billion for the year 2015, and their export was only $5.96 billion.
The Gini coefficient and index measures values by a frequency distribution, which in this case is levels of wealth and income, and can be between individuals, households, or groups. The Gini coefficient is particularly relevant to the US due to increasing debate over gaping income disparities and the disappearing middle class. The Gini scales from 0 to 1, 1 meaning perfect equality and 0 meaning perfect inequality. The index measures 0 to 100, which is fairly self-explanatory. As of 2013, a graph published in The Economist had the US with a coefficient of 0.42 after tax and transfer, with the initial figure sitting at 0.57. This positions the US with the highest post-tax and transfer income inequality of any highly developed country in the world, bringing into question the overall structure of their social policy system. Compare that with Greece, embroiled in its own financial crisis and yet sitting with a coefficient of 0.38. Where the index is concerned, a global wealth report measuring wealth in 2014 revealed the US again with the highest inequality at 80.65, opposed to neighbor Mexico with a score of 70. Clearly, in the US, the money is there, but its distribution is significantly limited before and after tax.
The HDI approach takes the focus off economics and development and directs attention to people-centered policies. This measure encompasses 3 dimensions to gauge a level of development within an area, including a long and healthy life, knowledge, and a decent standard of living. Within this measure of development, there are 4 quantitative indicators which are assessed, including life expectancy at birth, adult literacy rates, GDP per capita, and gross enrollment rate. The HDI ranks the US 8th in terms of development. Countries such as Ireland, the Netherlands, and Australia all poll higher when HDI is used to measure development. Surprisingly, the US ranks poorly in the indicator life expectancy at birth and is positioned 26th in the world in this category. 80% of America's wealth is held by 20% of the state. The lack of financial distribution creates enormous disparities, which can explain the US's poor position in life expectancy at birth.
Basic needs theory states that true development requires citizens to have access to food, water, shelter, and employment. The definition of basic needs was later expanded to include healthcare and education. So how does the US stack up according to basic needs theory? In 2014, it was estimated that 48.1 million people lived in food insecure households. That's 15% of the population who did not have access to stable food. In 2014, it was found that up to 578,424 people were experiencing homelessness. Compare this to Chile, in which only 12,000 were considered homeless in 2014. Finally, to healthcare. In 2014, up to 82 million people had little or no health insurance. For most Americans, the cost of healthcare leaves them with no choice but to suffer in silence. According to the World Health Organization, the US healthcare system ranks 37, while the developing countries of Colombia, Malta, and Morocco all rate in the top 30.
It is evident that the US is an economic powerhouse, and if development was solely a question of GDP and GNI, the US's position as a global superiority would be justified.
However, it is essential that we acknowledge the complexity of true development. Through using measures such as Gini, Basic Needs Theory, and HDI, it is clear that the US shares the challenges experienced by many developing nations. Greatest country in the world? Or perhaps a work in progress?